So I never know exactly how I'm going to start a painting, let alone a video about a painting. In fact, this painting had a lot of starts. In this video, I'll show you all of them and how I explored multiple techniques and went to 4 different spots over the course of a couple weeks. This is the trail that led to that second spot, and I decided to set up near this bench so I could spread out all my gear. And this is the view I had at this second spot. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Back at my first spot, I tried painting with water-soluble Inktense blocks. And boy, it was a cold day that day.
You know what happens when you paint with water in the winter? It freezes. I'm going to have to come back with a different material.
And that super cold day explains why you can see that faint underpainting of a mountain on this canvas. If you've ever had a failed attempt at painting or sketch, join the club. The trick is to just keep trying new things, I guess. Whether you paint outside or inside, it doesn't matter. The point is, keep experimenting and have fun with it. On this second trip, I kept using Inktense, but in pencil form. I think I like the pencils better than the blocks. I intended on doing a loose underpainting here, knowing that I would finish up the details with a drier medium. I usually do that with non-water soluble pencils, but on this one you'll see that I'm eventually going to use oil pastels. More on that later. For now I'm going to focus on this underpainting. I learned that having a colorful base under oil pastels is a great way to go. It's less cold today, but I brought some rubbing alcohol to add to the water to keep it from freezing. It worked a lot better. You'll know from my other videos that I generally like to have an abstract and colorful underpainting. I like to focus on the light versus dark values too, to help work out the composition. And I also like to keep it colorful by using complementary colors to make things more vibrant and interesting. These trees will end up bluish green, but for now I'm using the complement colors of red and orange. You can see that these Inktense pencils really become vibrant when they're wet. I think water-soluble pencils are really fun to use. You should try them. They're easy to sketch in pencil form, and when you pull out the brush, it's like painting. I'm not using a lot of water here, so my mark making stays a bit more controlled. And it's a much nicer day than it was in that first spot, and I'm having more fun. This is the biggest canvas I've ever painted on, and I wasn't sure how this experiment would turn out. I should also add that I also pre-coated this canvas with some pastel ground to make the surface a bit more rough for those pencils to grab into. And the rough surface helped me later when I used oil pastels as well. In my last video I talked more about how I often use pastel ground and consider it one of my best tips. I like what I'm seeing so far in this painting. Lots of happy accidents. These colors are really vibrant. And maybe I should have stopped while I was ahead, but I didn't. I kept adding colors to get some darker values, and I ended up making the colors look duller and duller, kind of like making mud. While that rubbing alcohol kept the water from freezing, it also kept lifting up the bottom layers and mixing with the top layers. That's not a normal attribute with Inktense. They're usually more permanent when they put down. But with the combination of the surface, the water, and the alcohol mixture, and the cold temperature, it made them act differently, much differently than I'm used to. I just need to step back and assess. Well, I knew the painting wasn't completely ruined yet. I decided to call it a day and finish it up at home. On the way back down the trail, I wondered if I could maybe get some of that abstract vibe back. Maybe even another happy accident. So with not a lot to lose, I decided to see what a little snow could do. Art's supposed to be fun, right? It's not like this is the last canvas on the planet. If I ruin it, I'll move on. But thankfully I didn't ruin it. The colors really did blend more as the snow melted. And once it fully dried, it dried much lighter. I think it's time to give up on the Inktense on this one. I also didn't really feel like finishing this at home, so back to the mountains I went. So this is the third time up here that I'm going to try to
finish this painting. I've learned a lot on it, and I'm gonna try oil pastels today just because they're opaque and they'll go over the mess I made last time. I like experimenting, and obviously I don't know if this painting will turn out or not. I don't think that's the point. I'm just gonna keep trying, and I mean, coming up here is just stinking beautiful, so why not? It's fun to do.
I also went back to this third spot because I didn't love the composition from that second spot. The foreground was just too busy. I wanted something with more snow. But I really liked those cliffs, so I didn't stray too far. I just went down the trail a little ways to this clearing and set up my easel. It's kind of a makeshift easel, and you'll see how I wished I had something different. But stick with me, this painting is going to turn out, even if I have to go to my secret fourth spot. It would be really hard to cover the entire canvas with oil pastels, but that's okay. And I like that the underpainting will peek through in spots, even in the snow. That yellow will give it some nice variation. I'm using Sennelier oil pastels. It's the landscape set, and they're really nice. They're super soft. Some people say they're like painting with lipstick. I've never even used lipstick, but these pastels are soft. But they're not so soft that I don't need a hard surface to paint on, and this easel is not hard enough. The best I can do is do a light touch over the underpainting, which is sometimes cool, but I'm going to need some pressure to get the darks of those trees darker and getting the snow more white. So I'm converting this easel to a table so I can push down on it. That works a lot better. It's hard to film this from above, so forgive me on my camera angles, but we'll get there. One of the tricks to doing trees is to kind of scribble while looking at the trees and not the canvas. It's called a blind or semi-blind contour drawing. I recently did an exercise in my sketchbook where I drew an entire sketch without lifting up my pen off the paper, and that inspired me to get a little scribbly in this painting. I definitely like how this is starting to look. As you've seen, I've tried so many new things on this painting. I haven't used oil pastels for years because I could never really figure out how to make them work. I know now that I was trying to use them on too small of a canvas, and I was also not using a bold underpainting. They work better for me with lots of space to work with. My style is very impressionistic, and I'm really loving how these pastels allow for that. I'm not blending or mixing these. I'm just using lots of broken color that blends more optically. I also love how opaque they are. You probably wonder why I had so much color in what's obviously a snow scene. Well, I knew I'd cover a bunch of it up eventually. And I also knew that I wanted the variations in color to peek through. I worked on this for a while and really enjoyed the surroundings. And I even got to do a little bird watching while I was up here. That's a Townsend solitaire that you can hear. And that's a Clark's nutcracker. I'm glad the sun came out a little bit for this one. And I was also glad the sun broke through some of those clouds, since I wasn't sure what to do with that blue sky that I had started, with the blue at that first spot. I feel like I finally nailed a composition that I really like, and I think I'll be able to finish this up in my fourth secret spot, which is at home, at my desk. And I'll speed this up for the finishing touches. But I wanted to say that the nice thing about painting at home with pastels or pencils is there's very little cleanup or setup. It's easy to just start and stop working on it at any time. And once I got past that middle ugly stage, I was happy to work on it at home. Otherwise, I needed that extra adventure of going outside to spur me on. Here you can see I tried using a regular colored pencil to try to draw some lighter tree branches over the oil pastel. It worked okay, but the pencils aren't quite as opaque. But it did do an okay job of moving that pastel around that was already there, so it did create some lighter marks that way. Here you can see I used a Prismacolor art stick, which was more wax-based to even out that sky color. It worked much cleaner than the oil pastels would have. So there's another tip. It's okay to mix and match your art supplies. Use whatever works. I started this painting at the first spot in the middle of February and didn't finish until the middle of March. I worked on it a little at a time, and a week would sometimes go by before I picked it up again. But that's how hobbies go. They're there when you need it. It's been a long winter, and having this painting to work on has helped me get through it, even with the frustrating challenges. If you follow me on Instagram, you may already know that I took this painting back to the mountains to get one last glamour shot. Maybe that's kind of weird, but it was kind of fun too. We got more snow, and I got to put on the snowshoes. Thanks for exploring art with me. I hope it inspires you to either do some of your own art or get outside. If you found this video valuable, please consider subscribing, or at least watching this next video I made. If you already subscribed, thanks.